All right, if you're a B4X developer, you know this feeling, right? Your app's logic is solid, but the UI, it just needs that extra bit of polish, that professional touch. Well, today we're going to zero in on one of the most common UI elements out there, the dialog box, and I'm going to show you a component that makes building them not just easy, but actually fun.
Okay, check this out. This is what we're aiming for. A super clean, modern dialogue. It's not just a box with text, it looks like it belongs in a top-tier app. It grabs your user's attention without being obnoxious, and it just looks good, you know? This is that polish I was talking about, the kind of detail that really levels up your user's experience.
So, the million-dollar question is, how do you get that? I mean, something that flexible, that good-looking, without wanting to pull your hair out. Without spending days wrestling with custom code, trying to get animations just right, and making sure it doesn't break on a dozen different screen sizes. How can we make this simple?
Well, the answer is you use the B4XDaisyModal. This thing is an absolute game changer, and it's built specifically to solve this exact headache for all of us in the B4X community.
All right, let's dive in and really get to know the B4XDaisyModal. We're going to break down what makes this thing so powerful and so easy to use, starting from the ground up.
First things first, what even is a modal? Let's just make sure we're on the same page. It's basically any UI element that pops up in front of your main app content. Like when an app asks, "Are you sure you want to delete this?" or shows a login form. It kind of takes over the screen and forces you to deal with it before you can go back to what you were doing. It's a super fundamental piece of pretty much every app out there.
Okay, so here's where the magic really starts, the design flexibility. The best part? You can tweak almost every single visual aspect directly in the designer. Yeah, you heard that right. No code needed for this stuff. And look at this. This is just a sneak peek at some of the properties you can play with. I mean, you can adjust the corner roundness, change the background color on the fly, dial in the exact transparency of the overlay. You could even make the whole thing go full screen with just a single click. It's all right there for you in the designer.
So let's see an example. Say you want a perfectly circular modal. Normally, that would be a pain, right? Messing with drawing code or custom panel shapes. Here, nope. You literally just set the rounded property to rounded full in the designer. Boom, done. One tiny change, a totally different look.
And it's the same story with color. What if you need the modal to match your app's main brand color? Easy. Just set the background color to primary and it instantly inherits your theme. It feels completely integrated, like it was always meant to be there. This is what being designer-friendly is all about.
All right, so we've got the look down, but what about where it shows up? This component gives you total control over its position too. I mean, a standard dialog just plops itself in the middle of the screen, but let's be real, modern UI gets way more creative than that.
And the way you control this is with another super simple property in the designer called placement. It does exactly what it sounds like. It controls the vertical alignment. The default is middle, of course, but that's just the beginning.
For instance, you can set the placement to top. This is awesome for things like notifications or quick alerts, Stuff you want the user to see, but you don't want it covering up the main content right in the center of their view.
Or, and this is a big one for mobile, you can set the placement to bottom. You see this everywhere in modern apps and for good reason. Think about it. On these huge phones we all have, it's way easier for your thumb to reach the bottom of the screen. So putting your dialogues and actions down there, it just makes your app feel so much better to use. It's more ergonomic, it's smarter design.
Okay, so far, we've seen a really flexible dialog box. But this component has a secret identity. It can transform into something completely different. We're not just talking about a pop-up anymore. We're talking about a core piece of your app's navigation.
Just look at the difference here. When you flip it into sidebar mode, it stops being a pop-up and becomes this slick panel that slides in from the side. All of a sudden, it's not an alert anymore. It's your app's main menu or a settings panel or a little info sidebar. The possibilities are huge.
And how do you pull off this incredible transformation? You're going to love this. It's a single checkbox in the designer, a Boolean property called sidebar. You just tick it to true, and the component does everything else for you. It even knows to ignore the old placement property. It's that smart.
And of course, it doesn't just stop there. You get even more control. You can decide if the sidebar slides in from the left or the right. And you can even tweak the animation speed right down to the millisecond to get that perfectly snappy, responsive feel.
So let's recap. We've got this one component that can be a dialog, a full screen window, or a slide-in menu, and it's all controlled visually. That's a ton of power, right? But you might be thinking, okay, this has to be a nightmare to actually code.
Well, you'd be wrong. The implementation is just as clean and simple as its design.
Seriously, it boils down to just 3 easy steps. You initialize the component, you add it to your main page or view, and then you just tell it when to show up. That's it.
And that's the real kicker. After you've spent all that time in the designer, making it look perfect, getting it to actually appear on screen is this, one single, simple line of code, just m1.show. The whole API is this straightforward. You've got .show to make it appear, and you've got .close to make it go away. That's it. You don't have to worry about managing its state or handling animations yourself. The component takes care of all that heavy lifting for you.
So let's just step back and think about why this is such a big deal. First, you get insane flexibility. One component can be a simple alert, a full-screen view, or a slide-in menu. That's huge. Second, it's so friendly to the designer. You save so much time by not having to code all those visual tweaks. And finally, the API is just dead simple. It's easy to pick up and run with. It's not just powerful, it's genuinely practical for day-to-day development.
And there you have it, the B4X Daisy model. It's just a brilliant example of how a smart, well-designed component can save you a ton of time and seriously boost the quality of your app's interface. So, after seeing everything it can do, the only real question is, what are you going to build with it?